going on?
Sanders, what's going on?
It's Mega Maid. She's gone from suck to blow.
What? They're getting all their air back. Do something.
Do something.
Do something!
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and we're a few days removed from the notification that Brian Michael Bendis' time is ending on Superman in Action Comics. Obviously, I did the first video where we kind of talked about his time is ending. We did talk about it also on Comics Aficionados, but that's a 2-hour long stream. So I did want to do like a Brian Michael Bendis Superman retrospective, and who better than Dylan from The Real Comic Book Gamer, a Superman super fan, to come on the channel and talk about. How you doing, Dylan?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing great. Now that I know Bendis is gone, that morning that this happened, I woke up and I had a couple people adding me on Twitter, being like, "What do you think of this? That Bendis is finally gone." It's great. I'm so happy he's finally going away.
We talked about when Tom King got removed off of Batman prematurely. We know his run was supposed to go, I think, to 105 or 110. It ended up 85. I think we're both pretty certain that this isn't what was supposed to be the ending point of Bendis. The Superman was in December. He was supposed to go a little bit longer. They kind of ended this prematurely as well. When we talked about like the legacy of Tom King, you're like, well, he didn't really create a lot. He created Gotham Girl. He killed Alfred, and he made Batman really incompetent. But other than that, he didn't.
And he ruined Flashpoint Batman.
Yeah, he ruined Flashpoint Batman, but he didn't do a lot. Yeah. As far as when you look at the overall legacy with the character, it was actually kind of easy to clean up for the most part.
Yeah,
I think when we look at Bendis' legacy, yes, he did introduce a lot more characters, but just the amount of destruction like in his wake is going to take a lot more time to clean up. Like when you think about Bendis' legacy, his stamp on Superman, like what are you going to think? Like what are the things that he left behind?
I think the number one thing that me and most people can see it in my comments all the time that he's going to be known for is ruining Jonathan Kent. Like what he did to Superman's son, because that was the highlight of Rebirth in general. When it comes to like new characters and what was introduced in Rebirth, John Kent was the highlight. That's what everyone loved. Like he was a great addition. It's weird because you can't really add like a child to a beloved character and just automatically people love him. Like Damian was so mixed when he first came in. Like there were some people that loved him, some people hate him. People are like, he's a brat, he's annoying, I don't like him. And there are other people that are like, oh, he's interesting, I like him. With John, like majority of Superman fans, majority of comic fans loved him. Like he was a great character. It was interesting seeing him grow up. It was interesting seeing Superman have to be a father.
Damian Wayne to a large degree.
Yeah, exactly. He made Damian Wayne redeemable. And it was an interesting dynamic because, with Superman, he's been going on since 1938. How do you make that character consistently interesting and add new things without, changing too much? Well, you add a family dynamic. Like that's completely different for Superman. We've never had that before with him and Lois having to adjust to raising a child. It was really interesting. And then that just got killed by Bendis. He brought him in. He made John act completely different than he did before, like completely ignored his parents. Where they're like, hey, don't go with Jor-El. It's probably not a good idea. John's like, no, I want to go with my grandpa. Where John was there during Oz Effect. He saw how Jor-El was. He would not have ignored his dad. Also, he looks up to his dad. Like his dad is number one hero. He's Superman. He loves his dad. So he wouldn't be like, screw you, dad. I'm going to go with Jor-El. That made no sense. Anyways, he did that. He got tortured by alternate universe parents and then aged up and went to the Legion of Superheroes, which was really, really dumb. And it ruined John Kent. Like John is now, we missed all those years that we would have had because he went from like 10 to 17. So now he's just on his own. And he's like, there's not that family dynamic anymore. Like he occasionally shows up and they're like, hi, son. And that's it. Like, there's no like learning experiences anymore. There's no like Clark having to sort of reteach lessons that he learned from his Jonathan Kent. There's no more of that. I think that's the biggest thing. Obviously what he did with Lois and Clark was terrible. The secret identity was awful. Like doing that reveal, the villains he added made not good. But the number one thing I think is ruining Jonathan Kent. I think that's like the biggest thing. Like that's even bigger than revealing Superman's identity, because we've seen that before. It's been done. It's terrible, but it's been done. Well, what he did to John, it's like
on my channel too, man. If you mention Jonathan Kent, you will get a slew of comments. People being like, "F this! I can't believe you won't even be talking about Bendis, and they will talk about it because people are still mad about it."
He's a beloved character.
Yeah, it's like taking a family member away.
Seriously, and like so many people were so happy about the because after he got aged up, we got the maxi series from Tomasi with Damien and
Adventures of
John.
Super Sons.
Yeah, and it was like, yes, we get a little bit of that back for 12 issues, and then it's gone again.
Yeah, I still remember the picture of Jonathan Kent looking out of his window, and you can see the swoosh, and he's like the happiest kid ever, and he's saying, you know, that's my dad. He's like, because of how the way he looked up to him, and you could.
There were so many great moments.
Character. Yeah.
Yeah, like one of the best was the annual written by what's his name? The guy that like he kills on every annual he does. He did one for like Nightwing and stuff. I can't remember his name, but during Superman Rebirth he did an annual, and it was like Clark
Morrissey.
Yes, that's it.
Michael Morrissey.
Yeah, Michael Morrissey.
Yeah, he's great.
That annual. It's a whole issue of Clark like struggling to sort of teach a lesson to John that his father taught him, because there's like where he's harvesting crops and Jonathan Kent, the dad, is like, hey, you know, this is how you gotta do it, son. This is how you use the tractor or whatever. And then Clark's like, okay, dad, I'll do it. He goes inside. He's like, screw this. And he just goes and super speeds it all, ruins like half the crops. And like, so he learns a lesson about, you know, doing the hard work and not just using his powers for the shortcut. He's trying to teach John that. Because like when they go and fight some robots, John's like, screw this. I'm just going to go in. I'm better than these things. Like punch them all. And then he learns like the lesson, like Clark trying to teach him. It was just a really great issue that like was one of my favorite moments between John and Clark, and we don't get any of that anymore. It sucks. It's really sad.
Yeah, it is. As I previously mentioned, if you've been to his YouTube channel, you know Dylan is a big fan of Superman, but you actually came into this willing to check out what Bendis could bring to the character. Obviously, everyone was said Bendis is coming as a warning. Look what he did to the X-Men. Look what he did to this and that. You know, Civil War II was awful. But you were like, whatever, I'm giving him a chance. And it wasn't all bad at first for you, correct?
Correct, yeah. So when this first happened, you know, the announcement, because it was like for a long time, just every comic you bought, Bendis is coming, like a huge ad. I have Marvel fans in my comments being like, just wait, he's going to ruin everything for Superman, just like he ruined everything for us. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to be optimistic. I didn't have a whole lot of hope. I was trying to be optimistic, not prejudge and be like, I just know this is going to suck. It's going to be terrible. I wanted to have some optimism there. And I did going into it. It was decent. The Man of Steel miniseries at first, until like the ending with Supergirl, and it was just so unsatisfying and dumb. But at the beginning, it wasn't too bad, because it seemed like Bendis was a guy that had been writing the same set of characters for decades now at Marvel. He had like just written every single character and gotten bored. And so I was like, okay, maybe with these new characters at DC, with Superman, you know, the most iconic comic book character of all time, he would have like some rejuvenation there. Be like, yeah, now I'm interested in comics again. And it seemed like at first he did. It seemed like, okay, he's not doing the same Bendis tropes. He's like maybe getting into it. And then it just quickly like slid back to being normal Bendis. But at first there were some interesting things, like talking about before, how there was this part where he's fighting Ragal-Zar in Metropolis, and you're inside his head, and you see that like how Superman is thinking of fighting Ragal-Zar, how he's like actually using his brain and not just being like, you know, strongman punch thing. It was really interesting. And then he never used that concept again in any other issue. But there were some interesting things that happened at the beginning of Man of Steel. It's just it quickly went downhill after that.
Yeah, so he introduced Rogol-Zar in the Man of Steel miniseries. He was kind of retconning the destruction of Krypton. Obviously, that plays a huge part as far as the origin of Superman. And you know, he starts playing with that kind of stuff, and all of a sudden things just don't really make sense. You're like, how could he have been here? How is he Kryptonian? And then all of a sudden he brings back Jor-El, who had been Oz in the previous run, and they were setting him up for some really weird stuff with the Dr. Manhattan. Stuff with Doomsday Clock. It felt like they were kind of setting that up, and all of a sudden he just kind of discarded all of it. It's like, what is he doing here? Like, why does he not remember anything? And now he wants to take Jonathan Kent for, you know, I don't know, coming of age trip, you know, through the galaxy. And it just right then is when he started like just destroying like the Superman marriage, the Superman family. And that was really what the fabric and the bedrock of what Peter J. Tomasi and Dan Jurgens' Superman was before he showed up. And it felt like he purposely went in to destroy it.
You could tell he had no regard for specifically Clark Kent or his surrounding characters. It seems like he likes Superman, but he doesn't understand him. But it really seems like he has disdain for Clark Kent. Like he legitimately does not like the character of Clark Kent. And he did not like the family that was built up because that he just went and ruined him. He had Lois and John go into space with Jor-El, which didn't make any sense because last time we saw Jor-El, he was a bad guy who had been corrupted by Dr. Manhattan. But at this point, readers knew it was Dr. Manhattan. Superman and them did not. It was just some random like blue force. They didn't know who took him. But they knew he had been corrupted. They knew he had killed people. They knew he had done evil things. And he had disappeared. Like Clark had finally gotten to his father. He'd finally gotten to Jor-El. And it was like, okay, this is bad. All the stuff that's going on. And then Jor-El gets taken away. And so then Jor-El just shows up at their apartment in Metropolis. And Clark's like, hey, yeah, you can take my son. Like... Well, he fights him, not Jor-El, but he fights John. He's like, no, John, you shouldn't go. And then John's like, but I want to go. And Lois is like, well, we can't stop him. We're just his parents.
10.
Yeah.
Of course we can't stop him. He's a 10-year-old. He's going to do what he wants.
Exactly. They act like he's an adult. Like Lois is like, if he wants to, we can't stop him. It's like, yeah, you can. You're his parents. It's your job to make those big decisions that his brain isn't developed enough to make. And also, This is the guy that was evil the last time you saw him. And he comes back. Superman doesn't ask him like, hey, Dad, where'd you go? Remember last time we had this big, like, they have a big emotional conversation at the end of Mr. Oz, at the end of Oz Effect, because he finally breaks through to Jor-El. And, but here, like, none of that is talked about at all. Like, Clark doesn't talk to him at all about any of that. Lois doesn't mind at all. You think Lois would be a bit more protective here?
She's like, hey, I don't have a story right now. Yeah. I'm going with it.
That's what pisses me off so much. And then she leaves like a day into the adventure. So they go into space. And then there's this part where Lois sees John like being competent. She's like, oh, he doesn't need me here. This 10-year-old's fine with his evil grandpa. And she's like, I'm going to go back. She's like, I got what I need for my story. I'm going to go back and write my book. So she gets out of there, leaves John with Jor-El. And then when she comes back, she doesn't tell Clark that she's back. She just starts like writing a book
with Lex and
down
low.
Yeah, so dumb. She gets spy with Lex, and then Clark figures it out, and he goes and spots her, and then Superman and Lois make out in front of about 200 people. So that was smart because Lois is, married to Clark, so everyone thinks Clark is a cuck now. I think he's getting cucked by Superman. So that was a thing for a little bit.
It was so strange, and then obviously Jor-El loses John Kent, who I guess was trying to escape him, and he gets stuck. I can't remember on which multiverse, but he gets stuck with the crime syndicate, which are like evil versions of his parents who torture him for like 8 years. And then he returns, and he's 17. So you miss like the adolescence of John Kent with his father, which is terrible. And just so he could ship him off, I guess, to the Legion of Superheroes. He has really gone out of his way to create a lot of like new characters. Like obviously Leviathan's a big villain. Red Mist is a big villain. I think
Red Mist is so bad.
Who is Leon? Was she already a character? I think she was new too, right?
Who?
Leon, like the Invisible Mafia.
Oh yeah, she was new. Yeah,
she was new. There's also like a new fire
officer.
chief lady that ends up dying. I think we were supposed to care. Whatever. But he ends up introducing all these characters or these new villains, and they're supposed to like outshine Superman's rogues gallery, which is classic. It's second, it's right up there with Batman and Spider-Man as far as rogues galleries that people know. And no one's going to take Leviathan as a bigger threat than Apex Lex while he's in the middle of Scott Snyder's, what is his Doom War, Justice Doom War, whatever it is, where Lex Luthor is all of a sudden like mixed with Martian Manhunter and stuff like that. It just became unbelievable, and it just kind of bogs down under the weight of it's like, why am I reading about this? All this other stuff is happening.
Yeah, and his character, it definitely does feel like he's just putting these characters in so that way, anything gets adapted into like a movie or a TV show, he gets some more money from it. That's what it feels like. He's just like, before he leaves, he's like, I'm going to put as many of my original characters in here as possible. The thing is, I don't see anyone ever using these characters again. Like, there's no point. Like, when you have Rocco Zar, he's literally just a way worse version of Draga, who was the guy that Superman fought on Warworld. He's a big alien guy that has a vendetta against Superman that wears Superman's symbol. like very similar to Draga, except Draga's a lot more interesting and has a lot more depth. Rogolzar is not interesting. And then what killed me about Rogolzar is the beginning mystery is this is the guy that destroyed Krypton. Whoa! And then in the end, you don't even get an answer because at the beginning it's like, did he actually do it, or is he a big fat liar? Was he the reason that Krypton got destroyed? And then in the end, you never get an answer. Like Superman talks to Jor-El about it. There's never a clear answer of whether Rogolzar actually was behind Krypton's destruction or not. It's like we went through.
I do want to say one thing nice about Bendis' run.
Right.
You've already said you like the thing where he added where he and Rogolzar were fighting in Metropolis. There's a moment where I believe they're in the Phantom Zone. Rogolzar is in there and Zod's in there. And they finally confront each other. And obviously Zod is like he's a Kryptonian supremacist essentially. You know, he wants to turn places into Krypton and everything. And he knows supposedly Rogolzar is the man that destroyed Krypton, and they start talking to each other, and Zod agrees to help Rogolzar. And I remember when I was reading, I was like, this is the most BS thing I've ever read in my life. Zod would never agree to that. He would want to kill him. Like Superman would have to stop him from killing Rogolzar. That's the way it would have to go because of the way he feels about Krypton. He's like the protector of Krypton.
Yeah.
And when they get out, Zod turns on Rogolzar and helps Superman because he's Kryptonian. I was like, okay, that's good writing. You know, he tricked him, but in the end, he couldn't turn his back on his Kryptonian brother. That makes sense.
That element was good. There was one decent element in that story. But I was so mad that we went through it was like 14, 15 issues of like, did Rogolzar do it? And then here's the answer. We don't know.
Maybe.
There's nothing. I was like, possibly he could have done it. You just wasted your money on 15 issues to find out that there was no answer. But that's like a problem with Bendis in general, and the fact that he just drags things out way longer than they need to go. There's like
he almost never finishes a story arc.
Yeah, there's no progression, and it's hard to define what the story arc is, you know, like the trade paperbacks, like issues 1 through 6, generally, like stuff like that. With him, it's like, is it issue like 1 through like 15 for like this first story arc? Is it like 1 through 12? Like, where is like he does, because nothing progresses. It doesn't make any sense.
In the page of the Superman, you know, initially we got Rogolzar, and then recently we've gotten the I think it was in Superman where he reveals his identity, right?
Yeah, it was Superman. I think it's issue 18, I think.
Yeah, Superman 18. And that's kind of like the other big story. Until recently, he introduced a couple of new villains, but like Superman revealing identity, it's like you're just replaying something that's already been done and was already rejected.
Like, it just happened, too. It wasn't like it happened, like, 20 years ago. Like, it just happened, like, 5 years ago during DCU, and it was called the same event. Like, this event's called Superman Truth. Back then, it was called Superman Truth, and it was the same thing. Superman revealed his identity. Well, he was outed by Lois, and then he went through a whole process where, like, his powers were dampened, and he, like, shaved his head and wore a T-shirt and got a bit more edgy and rode a motorcycle. It was really dumb. But, yeah, his identity was outed, and everyone was like, no, we don't like this. And Bendis is like, I'll do it again and call it the same thing. And the way Superman talks about Clark, like, when he's revealing his identity, shows the disdain that Bendis has for Clark Kent. I don't know why he hates the character of Clark Kent. Like, I don't know what he has against him, but he genuinely hates Clark Kent.
Well,
like,
I think it's because he's an ultra moralistic character. I don't think he thrives with characters like that. You know, you look at a lot of the work that he's done in the past in on Marvel, unless it's like a teenage character, he, generally speaking, likes a lot of big flaws that are right out there for you to see. And Clark Kent, you don't really have that. I think that's a lot of what he was doing with the destruction of the marriage, was trying to take the morality out of the character and show him for his flaws. But that's not, like, you're not embracing who the character is. If you want to write Superman, you want to write Clark Kent, you have to embrace that character and do the best you can do with that character. You don't get to mold the character to you. You know what I mean? And I think that's what his problem was. He wanted to bend Superman to his will rather than take his story structure and his ideas and make the best Superman story.
Yeah, he had no clue what he was doing. And also, the dumbest thing he did with the reveal was when Superman is like, I'm going to continue being Clark Kent and Superman. I'm still going to put on the glasses and the suit and show up for work for every day. And it was like, what?
Remember when they fired him and then rehired him a few minutes later?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I got no choice, but I got to fire. And then there's like, we're hiring you back. I was like,
it made no sense. Like,
okay.
what? And you know how like patronizing that would feel as like as a coworker with Clark Kent? Like, oh, look at this basically a god playing human still. Like, you know how like maddening that would be, like as a coworker. And
or
just
if you're like a senior journalist there and you've been getting scooped by Lois Lane for like the last 10 years, you're like, oh, this other guy that I trusted, that I was working with, that we were colleagues with, is going out and getting her all the stories.
Yeah.
Thank
it's like
you.
That's cool.
Like, let's take her Pulitzer Prize and all that stuff away.
And that's another thing. Lois would be dead. Lois would instantly be dead. Unless like they hit her up somewhere, like on the Justice League Watchtower, she'd be dead. Like with all the people that have it out for Superman and the fact that like they're gonna know where she's at, and the fact that because before, you know,
well, his mom would be dead.
That too. Because you know they knew that Superman liked Lois. Everyone always knew that, but they never knew that they were married. They didn't know that Clark and Superman were one the same. Now that they know that, it's like, thought
she was cheating on him.
Yeah, it's like, oh, easy, time to go, and like immediately she'd be killed or kidnapped or something. Like she would not be safe. But no, they act like none of these villains are going to capitalize on this. Like Bendis acts like it's weird because you know in Marvel basically no one has secret identities anymore. To where DC like all their characters still have secret identities. It's weird, but there's a reason for that. Like the basic reason for the secret identity is always to protect the ones you love, because the people you have like all these dozens of villains that are trying to get you, and they know the easiest point would be to go after the ones you love. So like the secret identity is there for a reason. It's very basic. It's been there from day one, like of comic books. But Bendis acts like he doesn't know why secret identities exist. Like, why does Superman have secret identity? It doesn't make sense. Not like he has a family to protect that people could go and take advantage of. I don't get how he like that just goes over his head. How does he not understand that?
Yeah, it's weird, man. So I know you're, like I said, you're a Superman fan, but eventually you had to like force yourself to read this.
Oh yeah. So because like I said at the beginning, I was trying to be optimistic. I was going to read Superman. I was reading it and like I got too far into it. Like when I had read All Man of Steel and it was like 5 issues into like Superman action, to where I'm like, okay, I'm going to cancel this once it wraps up the Raw Goes All Czar storyline. Once that wraps up, I'll cancel it and then I'll give my full thoughts on the run. But the Raw Goes Czar storyline waited so long to finish. It didn't finish till like issue 15, so it took a long time. It dragged on because I thought, oh, maybe it'll end like, you know, in like 3 issues or something. It dragged on so long, and so that's when I was done, because I had been reading like Superman since the beginning of Rebirth. Like I had it like I had been consistently reading it since the beginning of Rebirth, because New 52 was very up and down. There were some good moments, there were a lot of bad moments, but Rebirth had been solid for the most part with both Superman and action. And then Bendis came in and I canceled it as soon as that storyline wrapped up because it was so bad.
So long.
It's awful.
Like a year and a half almost.
Of him,
well, technically, if you count in Man of Steel, it probably is about a year and a half.
Yeah, because that was like 5 or 6 issues of just nothingness. Like there's no progression to the story whatsoever. It was dumb.
Well, I think we've kind of covered Brian Michael Bendis' time in Superman enough. I'm personally relieved that he's going. I understand there are Bendis fans that enjoy his run on Superman. I'm disappointed for you. I was bummed when Venditti's leaving Hawkman, so I do feel for you. But me personally, I think this is a great move. I think Dylan here probably agrees with me. I don't think he's left a lot of positives, on his run on the character, and I think generally speaking, in the future it'll be borderline despised, kind of like Tom King's run on Batman. But is there anything else that you need to say before you wrapped up?
Not much. Just it's going to be a lot harder than with King, where you could fix King's stuff a lot easier. With this, you got the identity to deal with, you got the Clark and Lois relationship to deal with, and you've got Jonathan Kent, who's been aged up. So there's a lot to fix. Absolutely,
it could take a few years.
Yeah.
All right, Dylan, man. I do appreciate you coming on here and talk about Superman. A lot of fun. Hopefully, we got better Superman stuff to talk about in the future.
Hopefully, after December, we get something good.